So, Aiden, what happened in that last game of yours?
I don't know. I was up like all these pawns, and somehow he managed to checkmate me.
Yeah, well, maybe not so much of an accident that he checkmated you. It sounds like your opponent was playing a gambit on you, where he sacrificed these pawns so that while you were busy taking them, he was getting his pieces out, and your king was not getting to safety. So that's a way you can get into a lot of trouble by being a little too greedy in the opening. Let me show you a classic game that illustrates the problem of pawn grabbing in the opening. This is a game between Bobby Fischer. You know that name, right? The
Okay,
greatest,
yeah,
yeah?
of course I know
He's
Bobby
playing
Fish.
white. Ruben Fine is his opponent. At one time, he was one of the best players in the world. Not so much at the time of this game, played in 1963. But Fischer was white, right? And let's check this out. So he opens with e4, right? Like in your games.
Yeah,
You ever see that? That's
I have actually.
that's called the Evans Gambit, okay? And if you didn't know anything about Gambit, so he's giving me a pawn. No, not so simple. The idea is that White picks up this tempo, attacking the bishop, and then he's gonna play d4 and get the center going. But also he's getting ready to bring his queen out, and because Black still see this knight is not developed yet, that's going to be kind of an issue. So, all right, so fine retreats the bishop. Now, like I said, he's very greedy in this game. There's lots of things that he could have done differently along the way. One thing he could have done differently is, and this is what people do sometimes. They bring the bishop back to e7, and this is kind of the main line, right? White plays d4, and then they go knight a5, attack the bishop. Now the bishop can move away, but if the bishop moves away, then Black's just going to play d6 and give that pawn back. Okay, let's say check. All right, now you don't want to go knight c6 because then he's gonna use that pin, right?
Right.
Probably some people have tried that against you. So you just go c6.
I've done it against some people.
You've done it too, yeah. Takes knight f6. Okay, so you're not up a pawn, but White's not attacking you anymore. The bishop was chased away. His pawn structure isn't so good. He's got isolated pawns and stuff, right? All right, so I'm going to go back to where we attacked the bishop. This bishop to knight a5. White can take a pawn, and you say, okay, I'll give you that back. d5, and then queen takes, and that drives away the knight, and then the queen goes wherever, it doesn't matter. And
I don't
again,
like this position for white.
well, again, it's a position where the material is even, and white has no particular attack. You're just getting your pieces out. And this is really frustrating to the gambit player because most of those guys they want to win really quickly. Sometimes they're one-trick ponies. If they don't get going in the opening, if they don't get it going in the opening, then they're not ready to deal with it. So anyway, we're going to go back to this position after Fischer attacks the bishop. He went bishop a5. All right, this is still okay. And then he plays d4,
Okay.
and he takes it. And well, okay, he takes it. That's fine. There's other defenses as well. Now you see, white can't take that pawn back,
It's
right?
pinned.
Yeah, it's pinned.
I think I actually kind of heard like an alarm noise or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
Too
good. It's
touch.
a good sound effect, right? Because you
Right.
can't take it. But now, maybe fine should lay off the pawn taking. Now
Maybe.
here's what a lot of people do in this position. They go here. All right, they're developing. Now Black's getting ready to castle and maybe strike in the center with d5. So this is kind of the main line. Knight g5, trying to attack before castling. All right, so we give it a pawn for the moment. Now the bishop can come out a little bit, right? So that's now we don't want to take this pawn because that opens us up to all kinds of attacks. For
Right.
one thing, knight f7, right? Fried liver time. This is a really bad fried liver for black because the e file is open too.
Oh my
This
god.
is this that's death. All right, so we don't want that.
That, I don't know, it looks bad, but it doesn't look like that bad.
Well, that's pretty bad. But anyway, we're gonna go knight e5. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So this is how the line goes. White takes on d4. All right. So we hold that knight in the center. Then they usually play rook e1, trying to cause problems on the file. So we kick the bishop. Now we don't want to take the knight because then when he takes back, we're gonna get pinned up. We're not gonna be able to get the king out. So we're just developing, and you see the bishop at f5 guards h7. So now we're getting ready to castle. So this is where they usually just retreat the knight. So we attack the queen, queen h5, and now we just castle. So we get out of the pin. Our bishop is hanging, right? But his bishop is hanging too. And so black has gotten out of the opening okay. He's gotten all his pieces developed. That's really the most important thing, getting your pieces developed. All right? So let's go back to the game. Ruben Fine.
We're not even 7 moves in.
Well, a lot of things are happening in the first few moves, right? He grabs. He grabs his pawn. Now, that is not, even that's playable. Even that's playable. But now black is really putting a lot of pressure on himself because he gave another move. So white is attacking f7. Black hasn't even brought out his knight. So now he's got to defend that pawn with the queen. And he does it the wrong way. The best way is to play queen f6. And the reason is because the queen at least is stopping white from taking this pawn. Now white, probably the best move is bishop g5 and then takes the pawn, and then I don't know. I kind of think that black maybe should take this knight and then try to develop. I wouldn't want to be black in that position because white has all these really active pieces, hard to play.
Yeah.
But it's better than what he did, right? What he did is he played queen e7. And now if the knight takes c3, even here he has better options than what he did. Okay, one of them is queen b4. Actually, I'm not so sure that's a great option. On the surface, it looks like a decent option because takes. Now, you don't want to go here because then you get pinned. Ouchie, right? Yeah, you don't want that.
That's
Yeah,
dangerous.
that's nasty, right? So you go king d8, right? And then this position, when the engines start working on it, we find that really this is a pretty bad position for black. It's not white doesn't have an obvious forced win, but something simple like takes rook d1. Black is just so open, and white has two bishops. The bishop pair means he's getting hammered on light squares. He's getting really hammered on dark squares. The king can't get anywhere safe. It could take a while to show everything, but it's really a bad position for black. So
Yeah,
queen b4 is not a great answer. So we go back to that position. So probably the best thing is bishop takes c3. And the thing is, black is at least reducing the number of attackers by doing that. Now this is not a great position anyway. Let's say white could go here, queen c2, attack the knight. Something like this could happen. Bishop a3. All right, now you don't want to go castles.
now it's a bigger pin.
This kind of thing, maybe later on I'll give you another lesson about these discovered attacks and how that can be opening disasters, right? But anyway, let's say black plays d6. See how you got problems on that e-file? This position is very hard to salvage. It's really, white has a lot of attacking chances.
Black's not looking too good, if I'm gonna be honest.
Even so, that's better than what happened to him.
Oh god.
After knight takes c3, he develops his knight, but that's a little too late, right?
It's only his ninth move of the game.
I know. But now the knight jumps into d5. And so one way you can really exploit that lead in development is if you can open some important lines against your opponent's king. And this is one thing to remember about the opening is that when that E file gets open and you're not castled, that can be a quick death. So black takes. Now Fischer gets that E file open. You see the queen and the king lined up on open E file when your opponent is castled.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's bad news. So fine plays knight
Oh,
e5.
I thought it was a great idea. No, I didn't.
Already he's lost in this position. Queen g5.
Open king.
Now Fischer plays a super cool move. Okay, he creates what we call in the business an overload. Have you ever heard that term? maybe in a
I
chess class somewhere.
don't.
Overload. That's when a piece is defending too many things. It's defending more than one thing at a time, and you can't defend everything. So the move h4. That's like, the pawn doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but it's chasing the queen off of this important square. So if black plays queen h6, right? And that would be to keep this pawn on g7 defended, yeah? But the problem is white can play queen a3, attacking the bishop. By the way, don't even try to castle here and give up the bishop because it's illegal, right?
Wait, can you make it so I can hear the noise again?
Oh yeah, like the whistle. The
Yeah.
referee says no castling, right? It's pretty cool. Okay, so queen a3. All right, so let's say black saves the bishop, then we give a little check-a-rooney. Well, you can throw pieces in the way; it won't help much. Shrekmate. Yeah, that's not good. So we go back to this position after h4, right? So what does he do? He takes, and now he takes his pawn on g7. So Fischer's very accurate. Um, you know, uh, by taking that pawn, he not only hits the rook, he takes away this key flight square, and he also opens up some other possibilities. So, all right, Ruben Fine, he plays rook g8. What else is he going to do? He's got to save the rook. And now Fischer he's going to win the game in a couple of moves, right?
Okay.
So he plays rook e1 check. Now you say, well, he can take it, right? He can. He can, but he'll take it back. Now, why did Fine take the rook? He could have at least extended the game by one move, because this game's going to be over in 17 moves. He might have said, okay, well, I lost in 18 moves, slightly less embarrassing than losing 17 moves, right?
Slightly, just a little
Right,
teeny
so it's
bit.
like, you come in and say, hey, Dad, I lasted 17 moves against Bobby Fischer. 18 moves, yeah. No. So anyway, rook e1 check. He goes king d8. Now Fischer has a super cool tactic here. And, when looking for these tactics, I like to find things like almost checkmates. That's maybe I'll patent that term, like almost checkmate. I've never seen that in a book. But do you see an almost checkmate for white here?
Um, thanks. He can almost move. He can move his bishop over
Yeah,
there.
if he goes bishop f6.
Only problem is that thing.
The queen, right? The queen is in our way. The
Very
queen,
annoying.
the queen foils our evil plans, right?
Yep.
So this is what Fischer does.
Can't let him foil the evil plans.
Boom,
Oh well, that's
queen g3. Attacks the queen. Now the queen,
that's just over.
the queen can take the queen, but that's what we want.
Move the bishop.
Now,
Move the bishop.
yeah, that'd be checkmate, right? That'd be checkmate.
He would have lasted 18
He,
moves.
yeah, well, he could have.
He could have got 19.
Well, in the grandmaster fraternity, usually you resign before a checkmate. In the old days, they would let them put the mate on the board, and they're starting to do that a little bit now. But the great Victor Korchnoi I once heard him say to a hapless opponent, "It's greatest shame to be checkmated." You don't worry about that. You're just starting out. You don't worry about the guy checkmating you. You play to the end. But anyway, that was the end of the game, Queen G3, because the queen doesn't have any square it can go to that will stay on this Bishop F6 mate, and so otherwise he's going to lose the queen for nothing, and probably the engine is already calculating checkmates, right? So really, there's no hope at this point. So he gave up after Queen G3. So 17 moves and black bit the dust. So maybe he was a little bit too greedy there. So you see,
Yeah.
you don't have to take you don't have to take every pawn in the opening. What's really most important is that you get your pieces out. And sometimes, you could take one pawn, but maybe not two or three, or you could take a pawn and give it back, or you can even reject the sacrifice and just get your
Or
pieces out.
take a pawn and then give it back. Do you like paint the color? Do you like take a white pawn and paint it black?
Not give back that exact pawn, but make your own pawn sacrifice so that the pawns are even. You're a funny guy, Aiden. That's really entertaining. All right, so I hope that helps, and feel free to come to me if you want to learn anything else about chess.